What if I told you that Hollywood's most jaw-dropping sci-fi moments started in the age of black and white film and rubber monsters, not CGI? The roots of every laser blast and rogue robot trace back to vintage American classics. Grab your popcorn. These early movies will change how you see sci-fi forever. Ready to have your mind blown by the originals? Frankenstein 1910. Before Boris Karloff ever lumbered across a foggy laboratory, Edison Studios did something wild. They brought Mary Shelley's creature to life on film. And when I say brought to life, I mean they literally built a monster out of smoke, mirrors, and raw imagination. This 12-minute short isn't just the first American Frankenstein adaptation. It's a time machine back to a world where movie making was as much about guts as it was about gear. The effects are primitive. Think melted wax filmed in reverse to simulate the monster's creation. But there's something haunting in the way it all plays out. Even without sound, the film oozes anxiety and curiosity. The mad scientist stares in terror at what he's done, and you suddenly realize this isn't just about monsters. It's about the terror of what humanity might become if we push science too far. Decades later, the film was almost lost to history, rediscovered only in the late 20th century. Watching it now is a bit like unearthing a fossil, strange, beautiful, and absolutely vital. And let's be honest, the moment that creature first sits up is pure nightmare fuel. It's not just an old movie, it's a warning shot from the birth of American sci-fi. Just imagine 1930. Forget flying cars in the year 2000. In 1930, Hollywood gave us Just Imagine, a jaw-dropping musical comedy that predicted life in 1980, complete with traffic jams in the sky, mail delivered by rockets, and food in pill form. Sounds like a punchline? Think again. This film is a fever dream of Art Deco skyscrapers, crazy costumes, and pure Hollywood optimism about the future. The story centers on an average guy who gets revived after 50 years in the deep freeze, only to find a world run by numbers instead of names. He's got to win a girl's heart, survive a Martian expedition, and outwit government drones, literally. The effects, genuinely spectacular for their time. Model cities, miniatures, and wild visual tricks still make you grin. The film pokes fun at modern life, but also gets serious about what progress really means. Some critics laughed it off, others loved the spectacle, but you can feel the ambition in every wild set and song. It didn't make millions, but Just Imagine remains an unforgettable vision of a future that never arrived. If you want to see how Hollywood dreamed big before space travel was even real, this is your ticket. Frankenstein 1931. Let's get real. Nothing says classic sci-fi like Boris Karloff's hulking, tragic monster crashing through a castle wall. James Whale's Frankenstein didn't just launch 1,000 imitations, it became the blueprint for mad science, misunderstood monsters, and the darkest corners of human ambition. Shot with moody shadows and thunder, this universal masterpiece turned laboratory horror into high art. Karloff's performance is legendary, all silent agony and sudden rage, but it's the relentless pacing that keeps you hooked. Dr. Frankenstein's "It's Alive" isn't just a line, it's the moment American sci-fi found its voice. The film was edgy for its time, facing censors for scenes that pushed boundaries. But its impact? Nothing short of a genre earthquake. It inspired sequels, spin-offs, and decades of debate about what it means to play with the laws of nature. Every time the monster gazes at his own hands in wonder or terror, you remember why this movie still grabs new fans. It's not just a film about building monsters. It's a wake-up call about what happens when we push curiosity past the breaking point. Forget black and white. It's burned in bold colors on the sci-fi map. Island of Lost Souls 1932. Some movies whisper warnings. This one screams. Island of Lost Souls is Hollywood's first trip into the twisted mind of Dr. Moreau, where the line between animal and human gets blurry and terrifying. Charles Laughton, oozing charisma and cruelty, plays Moreau like a mad ringmaster surrounded by freakish man-beasts. The setup, a shipwrecked man stumbles onto an island laboratory where animals are uplifted into human shape through strange surgery. The makeup effects are way ahead of their time. You'll spot details that show up in monster movies for years. The tension is relentless. Every shadow hides something unnatural. Every face tells a half-human story. Once banned in several countries, the film was too disturbing for some 1930s audiences. Even today, it packs a punch. The climactic revolt of the creatures is wild, raw, and weirdly tragic. "Are we not men?" one snarls, echoing through sci-fi and punk rock alike. If you want to see where modern creature features and ethical debates about science truly began, this is the movie that turns questions into nightmares. The Invisible Man, 1933. Science goes rogue in style. That's the tagline The Invisible Man deserves. When Claude Rains strips off his bandages and turns a sleepy English village upside down, you know you're in for a ride. James Whale directs with wicked wit, mixing horror, comedy, and genuine awe at what new science might do. Rains' voice, sharp, sarcastic, and increasingly wild, carries the movie even when you can't see him. The visual effects, absolute game changers. Floating books, ghostly footprints, and wild chase scenes set a new standard for movie magic. But this isn't just a bag of tricks. The film wrestles with power, ego, and the temptation to step outside the rules of society. The Invisible Man's descent from clever scientist to crazed menace is genuinely chilling, and when he's finally revealed, it's a gut-punch moment that sticks with you. The legacy is everywhere. From superhero movies to modern thrillers, anyone who's ever dreamed of being unseen owes a nod to this masterpiece. Watching it today, you still feel the danger and the thrill of what happens when science outsmarts its own creator. The Bride of Frankenstein, 1935. Think sequels can't beat the original? The Bride of Frankenstein laughs in the face of that idea and then screams. James Whale returns to the world of mad science, but this time, the movie explodes with weird humor, artful shadows, and one of the greatest monster performances ever filmed. Boris Karloff brings even more depth to the monster, now searching for friendship in a world built on fear. The story takes everything wild about the first movie and dials it up. Crazier labs, a second scientist who's a real scene stealer, and a bride whose electrifying entrance is pure movie magic. Elsa Lanchester's brief but unforgettable turn as the titular bride, eyes darting, hair lightning blasted, has become a sci-fi icon. What makes this film incredible isn't just the special effects or the monstrous makeup, it's the twisted beauty of its story, the monster's heartbreak, the dark humor, and the unforgettable imagery. This is classic Hollywood going full throttle. No wonder critics and fans still debate whether it's the greatest sequel ever made. Watch it and try not to fall under its spell. It's not just a follow-up, it's a bold, new creation, stitched together with wit, emotion, and unforgettable style. Flash Gordon, Space Soldiers, 1936 serial. Who needs subtlety when you have rocket ships, ray guns, and a villain named Ming the Merciless? Flash Gordon, Space Soldiers didn't just launch a hero, it launched an entire universe of sci-fi tropes that still power blockbusters today. Buster Crabbe swings into action as Flash, the all-American everyman who's suddenly defending Earth from cosmic chaos. These cliffhanger-packed serials aren't about deep philosophy. They're about non-stop adventure, wild costumes, and imagination running wild. Week after week, 1930s audiences packed theaters to see new episodes, gasping at every space battle and evil plot twist. The special effects are charmingly handmade. Watch for sparklers as laser beams and model spaceships that look like they're held up by hope and fishing line. But that's part of the magic. Flash Gordon taught Hollywood how to build worlds, create iconic villains, and leave viewers desperate for more. Without these serials, would we have Star Wars? Not a chance. It's big, bold, and totally unashamed of its own pulp energy. If you want to see sci-fi imagination before computers took over, this is where the space adventure began. The Man They Could Not Hang, 1939. Boris Karloff is back, and this time he's taking mad science to a whole new level. The Man They Could Not Hang is a movie that dares to ask, what if you could cheat death with a homemade machine and a dash of electricity? Karloff plays Dr. Henrik Savard, a scientist obsessed with reviving the dead. But society isn't ready for his experiments. He's put on trial, executed, and then, well, let's just say the title isn't lying. What follows is part courtroom drama, part revenge thriller, and all golden age Hollywood spectacle. The sets are moody, the suspense is thick, and Karloff gives a performance that flips from sympathetic to chilling in a heartbeat. The movie doesn't shy away from big ideas about progress, punishment, and the price of playing with life itself. It's a warning shot wrapped in a B-movie package. While some critics dismissed it as sensational, others saw it for what it is, a smart, stylish, and surprisingly moving piece of early sci-fi. And honestly, it's hard to resist the twist ending. For fans of science gone wild, this is one experiment that still delivers shocks. Dr. Cyclops, 1940. Shrink rays, remote jungles, and mad scientists. What more do you need? Dr. Cyclops is the first American sci-fi film shot in eye-popping Technicolor, and boy, does it know how to put on a show. The plot is bonkers in the best way. Dr. Thorkel, a reclusive scientist, lures a group of unsuspecting visitors to his hidden lab in the Peruvian jungle, only to shrink them down to doll size with a mysterious device. Suddenly, the jungle is a death trap, with giant insects and a towering madman hunting the heroes. The special effects are clever and still surprisingly effective, with giant sets and creative camera tricks turning ordinary obstacles into life and death struggles. But it's not just the visuals that stand out. The movie pulses with a sense of wild, pulpy adventure. Critics were divided at the time, some calling it silly, others praising its ambition and color. Today, it's recognized as a milestone in sci-fi filmmaking, a bold step into new territory for Hollywood. Want proof that old-school effects can still make you squirm? Dr. Cyclops is ready to make you feel small. The Invisible Woman, 1940. Hollywood rarely lets its monsters have fun, but The Invisible Woman throws the rules out the window. This wild comedy flips the invisible formula, swapping the horror for screwball hijinks and a leading lady with attitude. Virginia Bruce stars as Kitty Carroll, a quick-witted model who volunteers for a wild experiment and finds herself suddenly unseen and totally unstoppable. Instead of wreaking havoc on the town, Kitty uses her powers to settle scores with her nasty boss and take down a group of bumbling crooks. The film is pure 1940s charm, mixing madcap comedy with a dash of sci-fi mischief. John Barrymore delivers a scene-stealing turn as the eccentric inventor, while the special effects, still impressive for the era, keep the action lively and playful. Critics at the time were caught off guard by the movie's humor, but audiences loved the fresh take. The Invisible Woman proved that science fiction could be light on its feet, opening doors for all kinds of genre mashups. If you think early sci-fi is all gloom and doom, let Kitty Carroll show you how much fun invisibility can really be. The Ape, 1940. If you ever wondered how far early Hollywood would go for a wild plot, The Ape is your answer. Boris Karloff headlines as Dr. Bernard Adrian, a gentle but desperate scientist trying to cure paralysis after losing his own daughter. But here's where things get unhinged. To create his miracle serum, Adrian needs fresh spinal fluid. The twist? He finds it by wearing an ape costume to commit the crimes himself. Sound bonkers? It absolutely is, and that's the fun. Shot on a shoestring in just 1 week, this Monogram Pictures quickie never tries to hide its B-movie roots. What it lacks in polish, it makes up for, with pure, straight-faced commitment to the most outlandish premise you'll see outside a midnight movie marathon. Critics called it uneven, but Karloff's sincerity anchors every scene, turning what could be a total mess into something surprisingly compelling. You get a movie that's half mad science, half creature feature, and somehow, thanks to early Hollywood grit, still stands out today. The Ape may not be a masterpiece, but it's a blueprint for the wild risks and wild ideas that define American sci-fi. The Phantom Creeps, 1939, serial. Get ready for a villain who'd fit right in with any modern superhero flick. The Phantom Creeps serial isn't just pulp, it's the pulpiest pulp. Starring Bela Lugosi as Dr. Zorka, a scientist with gadgets for days. We're talking invisibility belts, robot bombs, and a killer robot that looks like a walking boiler. The plot? Zorka tries to take over the world, using his inventions to wreak havoc and outsmart government agents. The action is relentless. Car chases, kidnappings, and last-minute escapes keep the story thundering from one cliffhanger to the next. It's a Saturday matinee fever dream, packed with gadgets and plot twists that would make James Bond jealous. The robot itself became so iconic that it's shown up in everything from Star Wars references to rock band album covers. For all its low-budget charm and wild storylines, The Phantom Creeps delivered on one thing: pure entertainment. Early audiences couldn't get enough. If you want to see how American serials inspired decades of sci-fi heroes and villains, start here, because this is where the mad scientist truly became a legend. The Man with 9 Lives, 1940. Another Karloff classic, another mad scientist, but this time with a seriously cool twist: cryogenics. The Man with 9 Lives is loosely inspired by real-life experiments with suspended animation, but the story goes full sci-fi when Dr. Leon Crevalle, played by Karloff, is found frozen in his secret lab. Once thawed out, Crevalle explains he was testing an experimental frozen therapy to cure cancer, only for things to go off the rails, freezing himself and his team for a decade. The suspense ratchets up as Craval's obsession with perfecting his process puts everyone in danger. The film doesn't shy away from big questions about ethics, ambition, and the price of pushing science too far. Its sets are moody, its story surprisingly tight for a quickie, and Karloff, as always, sells every wild turn. The Man with 9 Lives might not be on every top 10 list, but its take on the power and danger of scientific innovation is still relevant. For anyone fascinated by the blurry line between genius and madness, this is a vintage gem waiting to be rediscovered. The Invisible Ray, 1936. Before Hollywood had radioactive spiders and glowing superheroes, it had The Invisible Ray. This universal classic teams up Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, and the chemistry is off the charts. Karloff plays Dr. Janos Rook, a scientist who discovers a new element that gives him superpowers and slowly drives him insane. With every touch, Rook glows in the dark and kills whatever he contacts. Lugosi, in an inspired bit of casting, is the rival scientist who tries to save him. The movie's blend of science fiction and gothic horror is irresistible, and the special effects, though vintage, still have a creepy kick. The story dives into ambition, jealousy, and the lonely price of genius. Critics at the time were impressed by the performances, but today, The Invisible Ray feels like a forgotten crossroads between monster movies and modern comic book thrillers. It's got glowing hands, revenge plots, and 2 titans of classic horror chewing the scenery. For anyone who likes their sci-fi with a side of tragic madness, this is one you can't skip. Black Friday 1940. Let's end this round with a wild ride through science, crime, and split personalities. Black Friday is the movie that throws everything at the wall. Gangsters, brain transplants, and a moral maze you won't forget. Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi are back together, but it's Stanley Ridges playing a mild-mannered professor who gains a criminal's brain that steals the show. The plot is a swirling blend of pulp crime and mad science. After a near-fatal car crash, a desperate surgeon transplants part of a gangster's brain into his dying friend, unleashing a wild streak of violence and greed. What follows is a split-personality rampage across noirish city streets. The film mixes sharp suspense with a dash of dark humor, all anchored by performances that swerve from heart-wrenching to hair-raising. Black Friday is proof that early Hollywood wasn't afraid to take wild risks, blending genres and playing with what audiences would accept. It's unpredictable, unsettling, and totally unique, just like the best sci-fi always is. There you have it, 15 early Hollywood sci-fi films that still pack a punch. These trailblazers didn't just spark a genre, they challenged every rule and rewrote movie history. Which one would you watch first? Or did we miss your favorite vintage gem? Drop your pick in the comments, subscribe for more wild movie history, and let's keep exploring the roots of sci-fi together. The future always starts with a spark from the past.